Today we've got two great guests here. We've got Rassie Erasmus, needs no introduction. I'm sure people know who you are, Rassie. And David Sullivan, who wrote Rassie's book with him. And yeah, we're here to talk about his book. I think I'll kick off with the first question for Rassie. Why the book?
Yeah, it was nice to see you guys. We've come a long way. Yeah, it's always nice having wine while talking. Yeah, the book. Why the book? I think while I'm not a big book reader. After speaking to David and Terry, and they explained to what the plans are, I thought, when you're not relevant anymore and you hope to see something keep going on, you probably afterwards will be a little bit too late. If you tell people now while you're still in it, some of the good work may continue, and some of the mistakes I made we might erase and go better forward. And that's both in personal and in rugby life.
You always struck me as somebody when you were still playing that of all the players, maybe all the coaches, that you were probably the least likely to write a book. So something must have happened sort of in between there. Was there any specific moment where you thought, okay, you know what, I'll flick the switch now?
No, I think if you asked me 2 years ago, I would agree. I'm the least likeliest guy to I don't read a lot of books. But certainly the way they explained to me what they want to portray and get out of the book, when I understood that and when we had agreement, listen here, we do this book, and if it doesn't come out the way you want it to come out, we just bin it. That made me really comfortable, and I mean, then I trusted David right from the beginning, and we just played open cards. And I think the way David wrote it was almost me telling the story and exactly how I think I would want to tell it.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to win over friends. I'm trying to tell the waarheid, the truth, and just get another side to all the good and the controversial and the bad things that happen.
We could probably ask David as well. I mean, the element of, with most books, there's the need to sell the thing.
Yeah.
So to what extent was it a balancing act where there's the sex and rock and roll, but there's also this wonderful character and name and Bach legend that you sort of need to put up in lights?
So for me, what happened was that I had a perception of Rassie, and then when I met him for the first time, we met at the Grendel wine farm in Durbanville, and the image after 3 hours of conversation, which went like that, I realized I had the wrong impression of him. He's actually this very shy, quiet, introverted person. And that's actually, and he was at pains to say to me, people always misjudge me. They always get me wrong. They think they know me, but they actually don't know me. And it became the opening part of the book that this isn't the person you think it is. And now we're going to tell you the real story. But in order to get that real story, I said to Rassie, let's talk about everything. Let's do the controversies. Let's do all the emotional stuff. And only afterwards we'll look and say, are you bearing your soul too much? Do you feel, no, that's something that's too private? I don't want that in the book. And as it turned out, all of the stuff went into the book.
Did you at any point say, oh no, we can't write that?
There was never, I said to Rassie a few times, I'll fight you if you take this part out. But it was never a case of him saying, well, actually, let's have a discussion about it. All the emotional stuff, the stuff about his childhood, his upbringing, the video, the bannings, all of that stuff, Rassie was very happy for us to keep it in as it was. And I felt that sometimes it was almost oversharing. But I don't think anybody who says, oh, you've missed something, I'm saying, actually, we haven't. That's all there is to it. If you feel there's more to it, then your information is wrong. Then you're part of a conspiracy theory about things.
Well, I suppose, it's like anything in life. You can always, if you start talking about anything, you can go down a rabbit hole for hours and hours on a certain subject. But at the end of the day, the essence of the story is what matters.
Yeah, but to your point, Liam, about we've got to sell the book. The whole time, because I'm a journalist, I'm going, where's the headline? Where's Liam Delcam's headline that makes this on the front page of the Sunday Times as the lead? I don't feel that there ever was something as earth-shattering that would provoke a big hue and a cry. But I think the frankness and the honesty of Rassie in the way he's confronted some of the bigger moments of his life is in itself is at the heart of this book.
The selling point almost, yeah.
Yeah, it's because it is just so frank and honest. But there was, I often get people saying, oh, you're going to write about the politics, all the politics Rassie had to deal with. And there isn't politics because there wasn't any. And I know people will, and we even wrote this line, people will read this and say, oh, bullshit. Because it's become the popular myth, isn't it? That Rassie was told to pick black players. He was told to pick Siya Kolisi. He was told that black players need to be in. He was forced to do quotas. None of that is actually true. The real story is in the book, how it happened. And it's a wonderful story of a process that Rassie started long before he became the coach. The Elite Players Development Pathway, the EPD, I feel, is at the core of this book. And the way he nurtured, identified and nurtured young players. So when Lekanyo Mapimpi, Cheslin, those guys are now playing for the Springboks, it's not the first time he saw them in 2018. He saw them when they were kids.
Yeah.
That's the important. He saw Siya when Siya was a lightie. That's why he was able to pick them. I remember saying to Rassie, when you picked your World Cup squad, did you then count players to make sure you got your racial quota, racial balance right? He looked at me like I was mad. He said, no, John, I did it all for years. I didn't have to look at that stuff.
Yeah, the thing is, if I can add to that, the EPD is really something that we're really proud of. I think it was just after 2011 when I was appointed our performance manager. That was one of the things, listen, let's find a pathway for players, and especially black players, into the system. And the thing was built around, and he explained it really good in the book. But the thing that makes me happy about the whole EPD pathway, because another first thing people will say, if you weren't in this squad under 15 or under 16, what about the guys, the outliers? But Mapimpi is an exact example. He was 29, and as the Mobi unit, we found, and because we started the Mobi unit as well, we found him in Border when Border was under administration, and Lekanyo a guy like Kirkley Aronson. Because we have got scouts everywhere, Sean Roof phoned me up and said, hey, there's a lighty here playing. I mean, he's not a boy anymore. He's not a lighty anymore. But then there's the typical Salman Murats, the typical guys, Jaden Hendricks, who's come from under 15. They've been in the squads. We know them. There's the roadmap on every single one of them. So, and that's why you're saying, why the book now? Because, if that doesn't keep going, and people don't understand it, and they don't go and they read how it actually works. Because people like to call transformation black in, white out. But for us, transformation is change. We have to change something. And if we don't change the way we started with under 15 boys, how do our SA schools team and our junior Springboks team, how will they be representative and eventually the Springbok team? So, yes, I'm glad that the EPD system worked, but it didn't filter so much that the outlier who was maybe injured or didn't make the Craven Week side doesn't have a way back into the system, like a Mapimpi at 29. Mapimpi turned 34 yesterday, if you think about it.
But what I liked about the way Rassie explained how this worked was that they would always be looking at players and with these roadmaps, which are so important. So there would be a skill set that you had to have by a certain age, passing left or right, these rugby abilities. But it went further than that. It went about your mental approach. Are you, and Rassie explains it, are you wingert? Are you entitled? So you could be the most brilliant player, but if you were an arsehole, you weren't getting the look in that you should. So all of these factors, it wasn't just the physical abilities, it was the mental ability that was also adjudicated. So somebody suddenly thinks he's the main guy. No, suddenly you're not the main guy. And a person who is struggling his way through and has got the same abilities as you, he's now got the front foot over you. And I loved the way that these were all adjudicated, all judged, all these factors were brought to bear.
Yeah.
I want to ask, Rassie, how frustrating is it for you? I mean, there's so many stereotypes in SA rugby. I mean, you played your whole career through them. You talked about quotas now and things like that. But not just that, and stereotypes in the way South Africa plays, stereotypes in where we are in world rugby, stereotypes. There's so many of these things around. and you, I mean, well, your one hat is SA rugby director of rugby as well, is to change these stereotypes. So when we talk about the EBD, etc., and it comes through a lot of the time through some of us writers that do it, make these mistakes at times, some of the commentators, but generally the public out there has a perception about certain things. So how frustrating has that been for you in terms of changing those stereotypes?
Before you answer that, I mean, it's another way of maybe putting it is, and I don't want you to sort of come up with a Nick Mallet moment when you talk yourself out of a job, but as SA Rugby, the messaging around transformation, could they have done a better job over the years?
Well, I've been there since 2011, you know.
But
so
it goes back.
Yeah, it goes back years, and I think when I say this, people don't say, "Wow, you're trying to picture yourself that you were part of everything." But because I was born in '72, when I was 20, when I was in the army in my second year, it was 1992. It was when things changed in South Africa. So I was a fan of the 1995 team. I started playing for the Boks in '96. So I experienced as a player when Rian Oberol did the first meeting he had there before the Wales Test with was it Dion Kaiser and somebody, I can't remember. Yeah, Dion In and Stefan Out or something like that, I can't remember exactly. So I was a player then, and then when Chester came in and Laurie Mains came across, and then the game went professional and we got professional contracts, and I went to the Lions. So then the game became fully professional, we got decent contracts. You know, we were even there when Packard tried to take over into 1996 when he signed all of those guys. So my era was just fan, player, semi-professional, professional, when it was quotas, they called it quotas, when they called it transformation, when they called it targets. But the big thing was always, I was either there as a captain, seeing a person being embarrassed, so either a black player that's been called a quota, being embarrassed, or a white player that's left out because a quota player took his place. So, you know, you experience those things as a captain when you have to do a team talk and you have to get guys up and you see, but shit, this doesn't work. So, and that goes on. When the franchises came in, when I was with the Cheetahs, when I stopped playing, and then we got franchise rugby, and from Super 10 rugby I still played. So, the thing is, you live through all of those things, and by that I don't say I've got the knowledge, but I've certainly seen all the mistakes. And I can't point fingers at SA Rugby because I was part of those mistakes, part of things that people didn't maybe do the right way. But I think, and that's why the book, I think we're now at a stage where we as rugby can work. You know, rugby can keep on working. I mean, be successful, not just on the field, scoreboard, but it can be one of the things that work. But then we shouldn't park the things that are working currently and stop doing it because we will still need it. But the big thing is transformation is change. It's not black in and white out. And I think that's the thing, the immediate thing when you start talking about transformation in South Africa. Everybody goes like that. If you talk about transformation in any other sentence in any other country in the world, it means change. But in us, it's got this. So yeah, I wouldn't say, I say all of us made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, fair enough. I actually had a discussion with somebody the other day about this, about how we squander those moments. And you talked about those moments now. I mean, I think in 2019, and I know it's probably a large part of it's in the book, and we've seen it on Chasing the Sun and places like that. Probably the closest we've come to using those moments that we create in this country that are so amazing. The 95 team did it, 2017 did it, your team did it. Yeah, that amazing sort of unity in this country that we can create with the Springboks. But every time in 95 and 2007 we seem to squander it. Do you feel that you guys have done enough to sort of keep that moment, or?
I think the moment, as something becomes natural, it becomes normal, but really natural. You don't have to plaster something over or talk around something. I'll take an example now, and this might be really specific. But if you take the two teams we've just played the past weekend, I know there were some guys going to, but then the one team there were only 8 players of colour. But then I said, guys, please understand, we know we've got you know, we've got a transformation chart and everything, but just use your logic. In the old days, it was a guy who comes on for the last 4 or 5 minutes, you know, and he sits on the bench. We now start with a Ox and a Bongi and a Joseph, you know, the Marvin Ori starts, and then we change the whole team. And then the other team, there's 10. And, you know, so stop counting numbers, you know, start seeing that over the last 2 weeks, there's 17 guys that's been playing in the 2 different Springbok teams, you know. So, you know, if you stuck in the past, and I've got many Afrikaans friends and I've got black friends, and I've got the Spats boykies, and I've got some of my army buddies, and some of mine who just say, you're just dancing to the pipes of your paymaster. But shit, how do we win the World Cup if I'm dancing to the, you know, how do we beat England and get Eddie Jones out of a job if we are playing around, you know, who can do so well to not pick the best guys but win the World Cup, you know? And if that doesn't turn people's minds, that's why I hope this doesn't cause ructions or big major blow-ups or everything. But that's why people must stop counting and just start seeing this is now natural. It's normal now. Let it go now. We're going to go on now like this. You know, that for me, that's a bit of a frustrating part when people still go, we catch you out. Well, there's nothing to be caught out.
Yeah.
On that score, you're obviously not going to be in the job forever. So that legacy or that way of thinking, once you leave that job, how comfortable are you that what you leave behind, the next person will sort of tap into that frequency and do the same thing and sort of attack that task with the same sort of vigor and alacrity?
Look, me and David clicked from the day there, the Grendel, and I said to him, listen, I'm gonna let go here. Of course, I can't tell you half-truths and manipulate you to write thinking books. Obviously, there's things in the book that is just a personal, you know, and it wouldn't mean anything in any context for anybody that you write there. But I said to him, and for me, a World Cup's great. For me, it's like to win a Currie Cup, it's like to captain the Springboks. There's reasons why I
For
said
one game, Rassie, it could have been more, but you turned it down.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
deal with that in the book.
Yeah, but
So it's coming, the question's coming.
yeah, but what I mean is, for me, that's what you're asking. That's for me of, I would, if I move on, and that's just another thing that collapses like that, that would be heartbreaking. And it's not because I'm this fighter for what's right or wrong. It's our system is working. I'm not just talking about EPD and transformation. We using every single different background and culture and religion and knowledge and private school and guy from the Spats and a guy from a village and a guy who haven't opened a laptop yet and we get those guys to believe in each other and compete against the Euro and big rich countries like England. For me, I'm nervous that stop. And not because I'm going anywhere, but because sometime, and he captures it well, I almost feel that's a great thing. That's for me the thing, that's for me the nicest thing that has happened in the last couple of years.
So what was interesting, but just to add to that, was when I asked Rassie about holding up the World Cup, how great a moment it was. He dismissed it completely. He said, no. The better part, the bigger enjoyment and satisfaction he got was watching these young players scoring the tries with the ease with which they did it. And these were the guys that people were giving him trouble about, saying, you pandering to your political masters, whatever that might mean. But the players who are the subject of that are scoring these tries, have come through EPD, or not Mapimpi, but the fact is that they spotted Mapimpi as part of the Moby unit, this unit that went around and coached when Rassie was at Saru the first time. And I thought that was such a lovely answer and a lovely perspective, that it's not about holding up trophies, it's growing the game and giving opportunities to people. But the important part as well that Rassie made, and it's reflected in the book, is he'll create the opportunities, it's up to them to take them. And by and large, all of those guys took those opportunities. If you don't take your opportunity, you're out. But that's your problem, not his.
I want to turn a bit to, which I think in my mind, and I hope you confirm, is a moment that sort of almost changed your thinking in a lot of the ways was when you went over to Munster. There's something about Munster, and I've also been lucky enough to be at Thornton Park and listen to Stand Up and Fight. And I want to ask you about the similarities between where you grew up in Dispatch and almost the Munster way as they talk about it. And I know you stayed in that beautiful place called Castle Connell, I believe, that little pub over there, which is also lovely. But how did that change your thinking and your outlook on rugby, and especially with wonderful Springbok rugby?
Yeah, the first thing that was nerve-wracking when I went there is, listen here, I almost gave up here on here we go again, we're going to make the same fuck-ups again. We're going to make the same mistakes again. I've seen this, I've been part of it. I've been part of those decision-makings, you know, and people don't like this, but in South Africa, you have to, somebody, whoever's the coach, has to be protected. And when I say under streams that go north and south and other decisions, and I don't want to be politics. I'm talking about things that can keep a coach away from thinking about the next line-out move and the next scrum move and the next. So that's why it's so important to, when I was at the Free State in the beginning, I could just concentrate on coaching. He describes it really well when I moved from Free State to the Stormers to Munster. When I got to Munster, the first thing was for these people to accept me. Here's a guy with a strong Afrikaans accent, he brings another guy with a strong Afrikaans accent, there's some words they can't even, but these guys accept us. And, you know, the head coach dies, and we explain, I don't know how to handle it, how to do this, and how we got each other's trust, and how they actually taught me how to adapt to things they do. And then you think, you sit there and you think, but why do these Irish people, are they just really good people? Why do they accept me? Why do they help me? Why did it take me and my family and Jacques and his family in and just make us feel so comfortable? But we in South Africa grew and we've got hardship and everything together, but yet we just can't get a team together and mind each other. And think about each other, and that's where I learned. But listen here, the people who's not the right people, and there was great players there, which is the Munster way. Listen, if you don't line and fall in, next man in, goodbye. And I think when I got back to South Africa, I just thought, but hell, if those guys can do it with only 4 million people and not a lot of rugby players, and they still were so strict, they don't suck up to a player if he doesn't fall into line. Why can't we do it here with all the other problems we have? And yeah, and a lot of other things that he interrogated me to understand how did we do that and how did we handle that. Surely Munster taught me about precision farming, really being professional, and their song Stand Up and Fight is just the thing. You know, it's a lot like the Spats Munster, just bigger and more sophisticated, and everything works. But it's working people. It's people that graft. It's people that don't get anything easy. Same with Cork, same with Limerick.
To what extent did your experience in Munster shape the way you deal with media now? Because it's almost day and night. Rassie Erasmus 2016 and before, and Rassie Erasmus who came back from Ireland.
Rassie Erasmus here in South Africa prior to 2016 was just stupid and ignorant or naive.
Before you go, I'm sorry. In fact, the week you left for Ireland, I had an interview lined up with you, 800 words in the Sunday Times, a big hole in the paper. It was left by Rassie. We didn't do the interview, but you agreed to it.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's one of the reasons why I brought up the question.
No, it's something that I saw media as the enemy. Again, you know, coming from the Spats, going to Bloemfontein, having Hendrik there, or George van Eck there, the only newspaper guy, the Volksblad. And you know, you can do your thing, you can put lights on the roof, nobody say, everybody just supports what you're doing. Ex-players doesn't fucking go at you, they support the team actually, they tell you this is wrong and this is right. But so, what is the question?
How did Munster Island shape
So when I got there, now you suddenly see the media there in Limerick, but these guys, and especially when Axel passed away, these guys really care. And you see, but the fans can't come to the training sessions, and they only see Munster play on Saturdays. And you start realizing, but the only way they know what goes on in the team is by you guys telling them what's going on in the team. And if they only go on the result, you might have a very slippery road if you got 2 or 3 losses in a row. And my eyes just went open and thought, shit, but I understood the role of media. I understood that because a lot of media in the past went on the sensational route, the ugly route, what's wrong, what do we...
cheap headline.
Yeah, but then you get the guys who really just wants to report, yes, it's a scoop, yes, you want to have the inside line, but you want to actually tell the supporter what's going on. That's why you want the team before the other reporter, because you want to tell it first. And the moment the lights went on there with those media guys on that side, when I got back here, that's where Stronger Together started, you know, where we give access, we do our job fully, we give you guys access, you guys report accurately, and the fans decide. So, no, definitely, one of the things that I accept, I was terrible at.
You tell it in the book. There's a story about. I think your father told the story about crabs in the bucket.
Yeah.
And it's an old Afrikaans fable about how we South Africans keep on putting each other down.
Yeah.
Do you see that changing at all, in rugby terms at least? Or do you think we still got a long way to go there? In the context of what you said now as well. So.
Yeah, I think the moment we started understanding, and listen, obviously because there's money in the game. Remember when we all played rugby just because there was like a dance afterwards, and we had a beer at the after-match function, and the guys, even we got into a train when we played the Blue Ball sometimes with the President's team or the Free State B team, you know, you're just happy to socialize and we go and watch a club game. I think the moment money got into the game, you know, everybody wanted a piece of it. Unfortunately in South Africa, it's a harsh thing to say, but there's only 15, you know, let's say really well-paid jobs, and there's only 3 national teams. You know, obviously I'm not counting the 7 style, but the women's, the junior box and the Springboks. Now, if you think about it, that the junior box only play 5 games a year. We've got the rugby championship for the junior box also going now. But a lot of people think, but where's this pathway? Where's this pathway? But there's only a pathway. We don't control the franchises, who they appoint. And so those franchise owners and people appoint who they want to there. And then at our level, we appoint 3 coaches, and then obviously on the women's side, and the 7th always has to come within. So that's why I think people are pulling each other sometimes down to get to the top, where they're not pushing each other to get to the top. And I understand that, but it's a very few jobs available. It's like telling a player in South Africa, you're going to become a Springbok. But there's only been 900 or 910 in the history of rugby. But you've got the potential and you work your way up, and at least there's a pathway. I think the moment there's money involved, but how do I get to that top? It becomes a very difficult question, and I don't want to go deep into that because you guys said I mustn't answer long. I think that's where the problem is.
Speaking of which, you created an image in my head now. The only way that cheetahs can travel by rail and maybe get to Pretoria for a game against the Bulls is if they took the blue train.
Yeah. We did take the train in those days. I promise you.
it wasn't now. You
lekker.
Do the train lines still exist?
I do want to, and maybe put a bit of light on it. Maybe you can just tell the story from the book about your negotiation with Dr. Late, because I laughed at that one. I thought pretty good negotiating skills that they had.
Oh, can we talk? Most people read that in the book.
It's only going up next week, by the way. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll preface it. So Rassie and a bunch of guys, Smiley Swanepoel, and Billy Brits went Billy Meyer. It was Billy Meyer. Free State guys. They were wanting to spread their wings, and they were playing golf at the Wanderers. And word got to Louis Late that these Free State boys were in town, and he sent a limo round to, I felt almost hijack, kidnap Rassie, and took him to Louis Late's office, because there was somebody who came and said, "Are you Rassie Erasmus? There's a limousine waiting."
It wasn't fully a limo, but there was a car, like a Bentley kind of thing.
And a booze,
champagne and booze and stuff in the back.
Yeah, so he was drinking champagne in the back, and then found himself in Louis Late's office. And Louis Late was saying, "Don't you want to come and play for us up here? And how much do you want?" And in the words of Don Corleone in The Godfather, made him an offer he couldn't refuse. But I let Rassie take you through the negotiation, because it was hilarious.
No, look, I was happy in Bloemfontein, man. We actually said we were on a golf trip here, raising funds for the Free State. Actually, there's a few buddies playing golf here. And when I got the call, I think I was still working for Minolta. When I got the call, I thought, because I was one of the few guys that had a cell phone, and I thought, okay, but there's somebody joking. And Leon Schuster was heavy in with us. He had the Cheetah song and everything. And I thought the boys was in on this. And when I got there, this guy said, "Are you Rassie?" I said, "Yes." He got into the car. He says, "Want to drink it?" "Why not?" And I taken. We drive to this house.
Champagne?
Yeah, with this big walls around it. It was actually at his home, not at the office.
Saxonville?
Yeah, I think it's where he stayed, yeah.
Saxonville.
Yeah.
Not the Sabine.
We got a mistake in the book, because I'm sure we locate this at the office. Okay, anyway.
Nobody's office at his house.
He has an office.
The office at his house, we meant that.
Office at his house. And we got in there, and there was, I don't know if he's an auditor, it wasn't Johan Prinsloo. Yeah, of course, Johan was there. And the guy, he said to me, "Do you have a mandate to be here?" I thought, I don't know what the hell mandate means. I don't know. And I said, no. He said, "But you're coming to Transvaal next year." I said, "Yeah." Because Bloem has one spur, 2 golf courses, and they were going to build a 10-pin bowling course. I'm happy there. And I'm going to name the amounts now, but I thought, no, I'm just blooming. He says, "How much do you want?" And I just, what is more than quadruple? I quadrupled, but I earned there. And he said, "You got it." And I thought, fuck it, I'm going to get out of this now. And I said, "No, what we need, a scrum off." Yeah, and then phoned Smiley. He said, "Smiley, no, come to the line." "No, you're crazy, you can't." He first made me phone my wife and said, I said, "Listen, I'm going to the Lions, Transvaal." She said, "No, you guys are drinking." I said, "No, I'm serious, I'm sitting in the top lane." She said, and she said, "No, she just had a new nursing job at the new hospital." He says, "Tell her how much you're earning." And I said, "It's going to offer us that." She said, No, we can move. We can move. And then, we got Smiley. I asked Smiley, "How much do you want?" And Smiley said over the phone, minute amount. And I got him the same amount as me. Doc says, "How much do you want?" I said, "No, so much." And Doc says, "He's got it." Yeah, and then eventually we were 5-6 guys that moved to the Transvaal. None of us wanted to leave, but it was really just amazing offers, and that's how we moved there.
I think Leon wants to ask about Laurie Mays, but before we ask...
Actually, I didn't.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you did.
No, done with Laurie.
Sorry, I'm worried. I listened to this podcast. It's called To the Last Drop.
Yeah.
And wine always features, and you haven't mentioned the wine yet. And I'm worried that this podcast is going to end and people are going to miss out on the wine.
Do you want to describe what we're drinking?
We raided David's wine cellar, and he said we could take anything, but we thought we'll be modest.
Yes, we went middle of the road in our selection.
So we got a very nice 2020 Canon Cadet.
Shot style.
which is a really nice wine.
Oh, is it? Okay. Because as I'd said to you, my knowledge of wine is non-existent. My wife's the wine fan. If I could just use the line from the great Clive James, who said, I appreciate a wine that merely stains my teeth without stripping the enamel.
Wow.
That's my knowledge of
Good thing
wine.
we left the Chateau Lafite.
Yeah. Well, I haven't heard anyone complain about it.
Oh, it's very nice.
Exactly. So, the question I wanted to ask was, a year or two later, I think a couple of years later, that a bunch of your teammates at the Cheetahs went to the Bulls for a very disastrous Super Rugby season.
Yeah, us and
Naka and you were supposed to go. I remember.
I was
recording
close,
it,
yeah.
And you turned it down. Did you see something that they didn't? Or?
I can't remember if this was post me being at the Lions already, or was it when you all were still at the Free State. I can't remember exactly. But I just know the flankers that was at the Bulls. I just thought, yeah, this Ruben and those boys still there, I think. I'm pretty sure. I think it was
Ruben, I think
Ruben was still
yeah, Ruben, I think Skitter was in the mix, and what's that flank? He was this hard guy. Can't remember his name now. No, yeah. And I think I had my fair share of staying in Gauteng, and I had to get back home. I think so. Yeah. Yeah. The Laurie Mains thing I would like to touch on, because I think if you go through the book again, not to sound, how do you call it, humble or anything like that. There's nothing in the book where I'm trying to take out somebody or point fingers at somebody. It's really just to say what I took from that and what I tried to implement, or what I never wanted to happen to me as a player. So even the part on the Laurie Mains, I actually understand, and I think we explain it like that in the book, his thought process. Because if you didn't grow up in South Africa, and it's almost like for me, when people say there can be a water carrier and they make it, all of a sudden there can be 4, and you're thinking there's no crowd here, this COVID, and Jacques is in the coach's box and I can now stand next to the field. And everybody bring messages onto the field, and the law says there can be an extra guy in the technical zone. Why not use the law? And because you're doing nothing against the laws of the game, and that's why, even against what people think, you want TV time or you want to have the spotlight or whatever. No, you can actually stand next to the field and there's no crowds and you can talk to the guys on the field. So, and I almost saw the Laurie Mains thing the same. Because, he didn't grow up here and know about all the different things. I don't think he's a bad person, and I don't think we portray him as a bad person in the book. It's just, listen, I read Dean Hall, there's this rule that Saru brought in now, and, I'm going to work around it too, because he thought Dean was maybe better than Conrad Yankees.
You say work around, I'd use the word, because I had to report on a couple of those stories, I'd use the word manipulate, but I get your point.
Yeah. But I think it was important as well that incident, so it's where Conrad Yankees was told by Laurie Mains, you're in the team, but you're going to play for 7 minutes, then you're going to fake an injury, and Dean Hall's coming on. But Rassie, the way it had an impact on Rassie was that he could see in Conrad Yankees' face, how devastating this was for him. And he's the captain, and he's got to motivate a guy who's now absolutely devastated. He's got this prodigious talent, as you all know, and yet he's only going to play 7 minutes because he's not a white guy, and he's there because of the manipulation of the quotas. That had such an impact on Rassie that going forward, the comment Rassie made a little earlier about transformation isn't white out, black in, because that would all have that devastating effect on somebody that he never wanted to see ever again. And so there's got to be a better way of doing it, and EPD was one of the solutions.
And the flip side is Dean Hall. I'm friends, I saw him the other day. Dean Hall was a machine. But also for Dean Hall, and it's not because I was particularly sharp but you were the captain. So I think anybody else who was the captain who had to talk to a team and say, listen, are you up for this game? Are you ready? I'm going to play 7 minutes. and the other guy, I'm coming on when that guy's going off after 7 minutes. It's kind of a logic thing that happens to a captain. You see, it's just a slap in the face for the guy that's taken off, or for the guy that's been brought on, because none of them feel this. Are you with me?
Yeah, I think it's very.
Somebody's phone vibrating. I was wondering what it was.
No, yeah. I want to jump. Obviously, your favourite topic that you love talking about. I'm going to jump in straight there. You know where I'm going now, and I'm not going to go into specifics because I think people should read the book to know exactly what happened behind the scenes with the referee in the Lions tour, and the whole situation that you got a ban for that. But in the
can I just say, Brendan, done with frank honesty, more honest than I thought.
No, I agree.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying for anybody who thinks possibly you're going to get a sort of a glossed version or a sparkly version of what happened. No, you won't. You get warts and all about that whole incident.
And I also want to, I don't want you to talk yourself out of the job or to another ban, of course, but do you feel that there are still double standards in world rugby on these issues? And how do you feel your relationship with referees now is?
No, like everything else, and I've in the book as well. I like to bring it back to embarrassment, and sometimes, not sometimes, lots of times myself, like any other person, make mistakes. If me and you are disagreeing on something, and you tell me, listen, I was wrong, then I'm not going to rub it in and tell them, you were wrong, because then I'm embarrassing you've already. And I think, where one maybe overstepped the line is that when referees make mistakes, it's normal. When players make mistakes, normal. When coaches make mistakes, it's normal. And I think working or phoning Nigel Owens, trying to get somebody to work with us, was obviously we got to a stage where we were a bit frustrated that are we seeing things differently here? But then it got to a stage where people felt, and I felt sometimes, assuming or just making their own perception that I'm already embarrassing this person. And sometimes it was just frustration to getting an answer back. But then in hindsight, you think, being the person on that side, you probably were embarrassed. And you never get something good out of embarrassing somebody, So that's definitely something that this year, and since the end of last year, that with Nigel and Jakub Papers, who worked a lot with us now, is that you're going to get nowhere embarrassing referees. But, also I felt prior to that, the communication just wasn't sufficient not to know what's going on. And I must say, having a meeting with Gilpin and Phil Davies, end of last year, and they bring out that statement, I felt, okay, you guys get us now. I think we get you guys now. And I don't think we've put a foot wrong since. And whatever I also say in the book is, in my opinion, totally the truth. But I do understand that there was a stage where somebody would feel embarrassed. But that was also me at one stage. And I think the book just gives a perspective from not just the one side. And the other side was published by the disciplinary committee, which they find. So there's nothing that we reveal that's,
On that score, you director of rugby, but in terms of communication, and communication not being the way it should be, shouldn't the communication from your office maybe be, let's put it this way, a little bit more, not forceful, but shouldn't there be better communication between your office, and I'm not talking about you specifically, but you have a referees department, with the people at World Rugby, or whether it's World Rugby or whether it's the EPCR? Do you feel there's a shortfall there?
No, I think that's why. I think go and read the book, what had happened up until then, and how the communication has been, and was there ever prior issues prior to that, and again, it is when the Lions series started, what was the communication protocols, how did it work in the past. At a World Cup, it's easy, it's awesome. There's a World Cup committee, a referees committee. You send clips into them, but that's at World Cups. In the old days, when we used to play Super 10 and Super 12, the captains and all the referees flew into Sydney, and you had a week's workshop on how you're going to referee this Super 10 or Super 12 or Super 14. Now you were getting, and I'm not pointing fingers, I'm saying that's maybe financial restrictions, it's maybe because we're all doing something virtual, but we actually had a Lions series without having any debriefing of how the series is going to work.
On that score, maybe you would tell our listeners how the fact that World Cup, how things happen in a more snappy way, how that actually helped you, given what happened in the opening game against the All Blacks. And of course, Jerome Garces was involved in that game. I don't know to what degree you can talk about that, but how that helped you further down the line.
No, I just think World Cup communications is, and I think World Rugby now, I must give Joel Jewett and Phil Davies, and we've got there every time now there's a communications protocol that gets circulated, how much clips you can send in, when you can send in, when you can get feedback, when you can contact the referee, how you can contact that. We know it now before every tournament. But unfortunately, when the disagreement between us and them, there was grey areas there. There wasn't a protocol written into a participation agreement or anything. So at World Cups, it's always been nice and clear, and I wouldn't like to go into detail there because it's open channels, and the deal is also, listen here, when they get back to you, you don't put what they get back to you out into the newspapers, which I think is fair.
Is there an extra chapter that still needs to be written in this book?
Oh yeah.
Well,
the victory.
Throwing the fishing
Yeah,
line out.
I hope so, Brendan. Good question. But and I've asked Rassie this many times. Are we going to win this World Cup? Every time he gives me a look as if I'm stupid, and he goes, "Of course we will, John. Of course we will."
So when people say to you, "This is the most open World Cup," and the field is wide open, what is your immediate thought? I mean, do you think that's complete nonsense, or do you think that, are you so focused on what you have to do to get your team ready that whatever happens out there doesn't actually matter?
No, Liam, it is it's not a cliche. It's not just something people say. It is. We know we went cold into the Irish Test match because we have foreign-based players, and we play in the Northern Hemisphere. Some of our clubs, our players for clubs. And when we went into the Ireland Test match, some guys were playing Currie Cup still, but then some were playing URC. But the Japanese players, I think 12 of our players hasn't played for 6 weeks. And that was the Irish Test match. And we got warmer as the Test match went on. But we thought we could beat Ireland on neutral ground. Everybody, that's why we are juggling so much the match fitness and the load of players. Then the second match against France, in France, with getting a red card, I think that game was like...
I remember speaking to you before the Ireland game, and you were very confident about the France game.
Yeah, and look, we lost, but I think all the players came off that field knowing, if we get them in a quarter-final, it will be a very close game. We won't say we'll beat them definitely, but it will be a very close game. New Zealand, they gave us a hiding the other day. But, last year we gave them a hiding in Mbombela, and then they beat us the next weekend at Ellis Park again. We play them at Twickenham again, and that will probably give some momentum going into the World Cup. But that's just, Scotland lost to Argentina, I think, but Scotland also they beat somebody crazy. I think they're 4th or 5th in the world now. So, and Ireland's number 1. So I think the facts tells you, it's just, you just can't pick a favourite right now.
I was going to ask you, I mean, I wasn't on that tour last year, but I mean, sitting here in South Africa, we all make the mistakes. We watch Six Nations, we watch France and Ireland beat New Zealand, and we see how good they are, the momentum, and you get swept along with a bit of momentum, and a lot of fans do as well. How much did that mean to you guys to play that, even though you lost both test matches? Because sometimes a team gets almost built up as the superhumans, but you haven't played them yet, and you guys hadn't played them for a long time before that.
Yeah, the thing is that difficult to judge with us. Like when we go into rugby championships, those guys have played Six Nations, and we haven't played since last year November's tour. So the world rank is a bit skewed. Then we go into rugby championships. Then New Zealand has played. They had 2 teams in the final, which was 2 weeks before the rugby championship. Argentina, and I think that's why they were also so bit off their game in that first one. Their players play all over the world. They don't play in the Sanzar competition, the rugby the Super Rugby, Pacifica or whatever. And they also have to get their teams. They got different players they have to align. Australia is just a different kettle of fish because Eddie is in new, he has to get the rhythm there. But rugby champions' first 2 games, and with only being 3 games this year, it's pretty tough for us because we had a 7-week pre-season where you can't even organize a warm-up game because there's resting periods and players' insurance, and when you get a player from a premiership, you must have 4 weeks off. And there's a lot of admin that has to be done, but that's why hopefully Argentina away, Wales, New Zealand. Hopefully when we hit Scotland, we're nice and match ready.
I was just take people who are listening to this, and I'm sure it comes through a lot in the book as well. Give us an insight on what's a match day to you, and I want to throw sort of part B to that. And what was a match day to you when you had to serve that ban? How difficult was that to you? Obviously, knowing how passionate you are about rugby as well.
Yeah, a match day means you can't be banned. You can't be the match day with the team. So you stay in the hotel room.
Can you have breakfast with them?
You can have breakfast with them, but you can't go team talk.
Yeah.
And I mean, the World Rugby is. I must say the relationship between us and World Rugby has really been good. In the sense that it's not petty things that they are being specific to us, or I think that respect is starting to being restored. And again, maybe because we realize that, listen here, the communication protocols are now in place. We don't have to point fingers or ask questions all the time. Let's accept that if they make mistakes, they're going to make it both sides, and there is a communication protocol. But no, I think match day ban is probably the thing that hit me the hardest, because you can train the whole week with the guys, and then they go to bed on Friday evening, and then you see them Saturday night at the Kontiki again, or at the team meeting again, and then it's a win or lose. So normally, when I'm with the team, I'm involved in everything up until the warm-up. So it's a massive difference.
I think last one for me is just basically for both of you, what do you want people to take out of this book?
I want them to look at Rassie's transformation story so that we can put to bed this whole notion that the man is a political animal, and understand that it actually was a rugby process that won the day. And we don't need politics to guide us. We can actually look at proper processes that work to guide us to success, if that could be the overriding thing. But there are also very funny stories that are in the book as well, and wonderful insights into things we know so well. The Rugby World Cup, the British and Irish Lions, Rassie as a player, wonderful insights into every facet of his life, and then some deeply personal stuff about his upbringing as well. But for me, it's how did he get transformation right? How did he create a team that is now supported by almost all South Africans? How did he get that right? That's what I hope people take away.
Yeah, I know we chatted a lot about that. For me, that's one of the things, and certainly one of the important things. But for me, it's listen, man, you can be a Okie from Dispatch, or you can be a guy from Kraaifontein, or you can be from Zwede, or you can never open a laptop in your life, or we can find a way to work together and be successful because we respect each other, we trust each other, and if you get the right people in the room and everybody, whilst making mistakes, whilst losing, that's for me the whole hope part. The whole hope part is if I don't backstab you or talk shit behind your back, or if you don't wonder what is my intentions, the trust develops. And the moment trust develops, honesty is there. And the moment honesty is there, then win or lose, you'll get better and better. And not saying at all there wasn't a shitload of mistakes that I made and still make. But I hope they take out that you don't have to be the sophisticated guy with 10 degrees, which I admire and rank and fantastic. You can be a normal guy with normal problems and mistakes and still make it work. And I think people underestimate their possibilities to help make something work in South Africa.
Do you have anything?
No, I have a question, but it's not for, I don't think it's for the pod. It links into what you were talking about that.
But let me just say thanks, guys, for the chat, just so they can.
Yeah, sure.
I like it. Thank you.
Just thanks, guys, for the chat, and I hope the book does very well.
Well, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you guys, and I'm a fan of the pod. So I'm glad that we could be on it.
What was also quite clear is like we could easily have sat here for 3 pods. Yeah, the time doesn't allow us that.
Yeah.
But thank you very much, guys.
I think we should rate David's once a night.
Yeah. Cheers.
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 Let's have a wine at 1. Don't tell them it's 11.
We're recording this at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Thank you.
Cheers.